Well, hi everybody. So today I'm going to be going over the Piper Arrow 3 from Just Flight. I'll show you how to start it up, how to take it off, how to land it, and then do a short review on it, and that'll be it for today. So let's go ahead and get started. Alright, well here we are in the cabin of the Arrow here. I want to be honest, the texture quality in here isn't all that great. Um, it's not so bad if you're not too close to it, like too zoomed in. It doesn't look terrible. But when you do actually kind of zoom in here, you see it's pretty low quality texture here. Some things don't really line up. Um, Now I don't know that it really detracts that much from the plane itself. It might a little bit from the price, but we'll get into that more in the review here. Alrighty, well we'll go through the tablet here real quick. They call it an electronic flight bag. I'm going to call it a tablet. Now I'm not going to go through everything in here. Some of it is just pretty self-explanatory. But we'll start here with aircraft states. These are pretty much just quick start options for the plane. And then we have maintenance here. This is tied to the damage system that comes to the plane. I'll talk a little bit more about that in the review than I will here. Right now I'm just going to kind of cover what is actually in the maintenance section here. So we have oil quantity, and what's going to happen in the plane is when you fly it, it's going to burn oil, and you'll have to refill it to prevent it from damaging the motor. Now, I do think it burns oil off a little quickly for an engine. That might just be me. Now, it's not incredibly quick. You can fly it for a good number of flights, and you'll never have to worry about refilling it. But it just seems a little quick for the amount of time that the motor is on versus the amount of oil that gets burned. So, but again, that could just be me. But if when you get down to a low point, or if you want to keep it topped off, then you just need to hit refill oil here. Now, battery volts. I can't really think of a reason why you would run into a problem with this. As long as you can get the engine running and turn the alternator on, it will recharge the battery for you. So unless maybe you for some reason didn't get the engine going and you had to do multiple starts or something like that, then you'll drain the battery. But if you do, all you really need to do is click recharge battery here, and then you have like warnings here. This will, like, anything that is damaged will pop up here and it'll let you know. And then if you don't want to even deal with this, you can always turn it off. All you have to do is click this little check here next to what says enabled, and it will disable it. I believe by default it is disabled though, so if you want to use this system, you will have to check this and turn it on. We have aircraft options here. We have auto fuel selector. All this is going to do is just automatically switch between the left and the right fuel tank to keep the plane balanced as you fly. And then you have GPS options here. Now, there are three configurations for the GPS unit, or the GPS units, however you want to think about it. So we've got GPS and the GNS Dual, and then the GNS 530. I'm going to leave it on the default one, which is the GPS 100. And then we have state saving. This is going to keep the plane in whatever state it was in when you last left it. So the last time you exited the flight, when you come back into it, it should be exactly the same as it was when you left it. And then you have the ability to swap out your directional indicator for an HSI. And then we've got equipment over here, which is chocks, tie downs, and tow bar. By default, chocks and tie downs are already on. We will need to go ahead and turn these off, so I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. And then we have flight info down here. Flight info, it is actually kind of a neat feature. It's pretty useful. It contains, the first page is like the headwind component, crosswind, true airspeed, and drift and whatnot. So the second page and the third page are like endurance of the plane, fuel consumed, fuel remaining, flight time remaining, that kind of thing. And so that'll pretty much do it for the tablet. So we'll go ahead and run through the instrument panel real quick. Alright, so we'll just go ahead and start up here on the left-hand corner of the instrument panel. You have a vacuum gauge, airspeed indicator, attitude indicator, altimeter, ADF indicator, turn slip coordinator, directional indicator, or this will be the HSI, depending upon which configuration you've selected. Climb indicator, VOR1, VOR2. And down here on the left of the yoke, you've got oil pressure, oil temperature, amp meter. On the right side of the yoke, we have the left fuel tank, fuel pressure, and right fuel tank. Below the yoke, we've got your RPM gauge, manifold pressure, and fuel flow gauge. The magnetos are here on this key, and then this section over here is pretty much just dedicated to the autopilot. The only thing I'm really going to say about it is altitude hold isn't really a switch or anything. It's just kind of this click point here. And then on the left side of the cabin here, we've got your fuel selector. On the floor, we've got your flaps lever. In between your seats is the pitch trim here. And then we've got parking brake, rudder trim, landing gear lever, throttle, propeller pitch, and mixture levers. I'm not really going to go through the GPS up here. This will change depending upon which configuration you've chosen. The one thing is the transponder will always be right here, no matter which configuration you have chosen. And then I'm pretty much just going to call this the electrical panel. So we've got battery, alternator, fuel pump, exterior lights, and then pitot heat. The dials on the outside control the panel lights and the radio lights. We've got an alternate air switch here, exhaust gas temperature gauge, and then over here we've got a circuit breaker. They are all clickable, so you can, click on them. I'm pretty sure they work. I haven't really tested it, but I would assume so. Most of the things in this plane do work. And then up here we've got your directional gyro, your outside air temperature, thermometer, gauge, whatever. And then we've got a floodlight up here on the ceiling. This knob here is what turns it on and off. And that's pretty much it. Alrighty, well, we'll go ahead and get the arrow started here. I'm not going to go through how the manual says to do it exactly. The manual is going to have me hopping out of the plane to check on exterior lights and a couple other things. And I'm not going to waste my time doing that. So first thing we're going to want to do here is turn the fuel selector to either the left or the right tank. And then we'll come over here, flip on the battery, flip on the fuel pump. I'll probably have a fuel pressure warning on the tablet. So to get rid of that, we're going to bring the mixture here up to rich for about 3 seconds and then turn it back down to cut off. Go ahead and bring the propeller pitch up to full. Crack the throttle here so that the top of the lever is about even with the top of the E here on throttle. We'll go ahead and turn the beacon light on just for the heck of it. And then we'll come over here and turn the magnetos over to start and bring the mixture up to rich. And then we'll turn the alternator on and we'll go ahead and turn the rest of the exterior lights on and the pitot heat. And we've got the arrow started, so we'll go ahead and head out to the runway here and take it off. Alright, well, here we are at the end of the runway. I'm going to go ahead and turn the fuel pump off just because it makes an annoying noise, and not really because you're supposed to. According to the manual, you're supposed to leave it on until after you take off and then turn it on again before you land. I haven't noticed it makes a difference if you just want to leave it off. So now, as far as taking it off and landing it and everything goes, it's a pretty easy plane to take off and land. The only thing I will say is that when you taxi it, do kind of watch your speed. It does have a tendency to kind of want to, it does kind of get away from you. Will get going pretty quick while you're taxiing, and then it'll become difficult to turn. So other than that, it's a really easy plane. So we'll go ahead and take off here. Now, one thing I will mention is that I do these things in live weather, and I have a 12 knot crosswind here. So if this doesn't look great, it's actually not the plane. It is me and the wind. So because it is really, like I said, it's really easy to land and take off. But for takeoff, we will need 1 notch of flaps, 2 if it's a short runway, and then we'll go ahead and release the parking brake and throttle up here. Now you want to begin to pull back on the yoke at somewhere between 50 and 60 knots. I'd say 55 is probably the best speed. And then it should lift off the ground not too long after that. Go ahead and put the gear up and then put the flaps up. Now, stall speed for the Arrow here is going to be 55 knots with the flaps all the way down and 60 with them up. One thing I will say about stalling this plane is I've not actually been able to get it to go into a spin. It seems to kind of honestly just recover itself from a stall. It doesn't... I'm not entirely sure how realistic it is, but I could not get it to actually spin. I mean, no matter what happened, it wouldn't do it. So, the other thing is that the manual's going to tell you to, during cruise, put this thing at like 75% of the engine's horsepower for cruising. If you're like me and you have no idea what that is, there is a performance table located in the documents folder for this plane that will give you all of that information. I'm not going to go through it because it's going to vary depending upon the altitude and temperature that you're at. So, but if you are looking to fly this thing, I guess a little bit closer to real world, that's where all that information is. Again, if you do though want to fly at full throttle, you don't really have to worry about anything. It doesn't seem to damage anything. Now, I didn't actually think about this until just now, but it may burn oil off the engine a little bit faster. But I didn't really test that or think to test that, so I'm not sure. But anyway, overall, it's a pretty easy plane to fly. It is just a general aviation aircraft, so it's pretty simple. It's not going to be a handful for you or anything like that. Alrighty, so we'll come in here for a landing. We'll want to go ahead and wait until we get below 129 knots to put the gear down. Then we'll want to wait until we're below 103 to put the flaps down. You'll want to come in here at about 75 knots, and then as you get over the runway, decrease the throttle. And it is pretty good about just settling itself down on the runway. So it should be a pretty nice and gentle landing. But we'll see how this goes with the crosswind. So we're going a little fast here, so we'll decrease the throttle a little bit early. Flared here to bleed off the last little bit of that speed. And touchdown. We'll want to touch down at about 60 knots. And it does have good brakes, I will say that. It does stop itself pretty quickly. So that'll pretty much do it for the Arrow here. We'll go ahead and go to the review here, and that'll be it for today. Alrighty, well, if you would like to buy the Piper Arrow 3, you can get it either at justflight.com or from the Microsoft Flight Simulator Marketplace. Now, it is $44, which I'm going to say I think is a little overpriced. I'll explain why in a second, but first I want to go through something. This is the Piper Arrow 3. Just Flight also makes an Arrow 3 Turbo and an Arrow 4. They come in their own bundle. They also make a bundle that includes all three of them, which is $64. Now, there isn't much difference between the three of them, but the 4 is a different model. It has a T-tail, and if you were to break that down, comes out to a little bit over $21 for each of them, which I think is a better price. I could see 25, maybe 30, because of the damage system that they created for them, but I just think it would be better if they were a little cheaper. Now, as far as the review of the Arrow goes, the model quality is actually really good. As far as I could tell, there aren't any points where seams don't line up, or there aren't any gaps or anything like that in the model. It's really just the texture quality. It's not that great. Now, the exterior does look a lot better than the interior does, and they're by no means terrible, but they just aren't as good as some of the other planes that you can get for less money. The one thing that I will say about the textures is they don't look that bad at a distance. It's when you get really close to them that you kind of notice it. And the one thing that I did like about the textures was that there are oil and carbon deposits from the exhaust and things like that, so I always think that's a nice touch when you include details like that. The interior is kind of the same way. It has some scuffed up paint, and there's like grass on the floor and things like that, which I think give it kind of a lived-in appearance. The sound quality is pretty good, though. I didn't notice any missing sound effects, and I'll be honest, I rather like the sound effects for this plane. The damage system is really pretty cool, and the addition of a maintenance system combined with things like spark plug fouling and vapor lock and a couple other things. So I think that the damage system is a plus, and I tend to enjoy things that are a little bit more complex than the standard Microsoft Flight Simulator planes anyway. So overall, I do like the plane. It's just the texture quality is not that great, which I think makes it a little bit overpriced. And it's not a bad plane, it just doesn't look that great up close. So that'll do it for today, y'all, and thanks for watching, and I hope there's a next time.